A doctor became pregnant by a beggar she found on the street. Everyone mocked and laughed at the situation, but they had no idea that one morning Beatriz was crossing the narrow hallway of her new apartment with her hands full of wrapped boxes. The old building in which she had decided to settle had a rustic charm, but it was far from being in ideal condition. The walls needed a new coat of paint, the floor needed a polish, and the heating system needed an urgent overhaul. However, Beatriz did not allow herself to be discouraged. The thought of finally having a home in that quiet neighborhood, away from the hustle and bustle of the city and long hours at the hospital, was a prospect that kept her excited. The doctor threw herself on the sofa, still covered by a plastic blanket. The morning started out chaotically. A combination of an alarm that hadn't gone off and the mess of the move-in process resulted in a significant delay. When the alarm clock finally sounded, Beatriz was surprised at how late it was, rushing to get ready with the feeling that she was fighting against time once again. Late, Beatriz muttered to herself hurriedly as she put on her lab coat and shoes. While grabbing her purse and the last of her breakfast items, she left the house and quickly headed to the hospital. The feeling of stress grew with every minute lost. The traffic that seemed calmer in the morning was unexpectedly congested. Beatriz found herself in an endless line of cars and, to make matters worse, the bus line was stopped in the same direction she needed to go. Frustration took over her, but she knew she needed to remain calm. When she finally arrived at the hospital, Beatriz barely had time to breathe. The nursing team was already awaiting his presence, and the shift was full of emergency cases and patients with urgent needs. The hospital routine was, as always, frenetic and challenging, but Beatriz dedicated herself to her work with a passion that had always defined her. Hours passed and Beatriz felt the weight of her exhaustion. At the end of a particularly intense shift, she decided it was time to go home and try to bring some order to the chaos that filled her new home. "Beatriz, are you leaving?" asked Sophia, one of the nurses who was known for always observing. "Yes, I just want to organize the mess in the apartment a little after moving. Yesterday I couldn't do anything," Beatriz replied, trying to hide the tiredness on her face. Sophia gave him an understanding smile. "I hope you can resolve this soon. If you need help, you can call me." Beatriz thanked him and, with one last look at the hospital corridors, left for her new home. The sun was beginning to set, casting a golden light over the hospital. However, as she approached the car, a strange feeling enveloped her. It was as if something in the air was different, but she couldn't identify it. On the way back home, there was a feeling of unease, and a whisper in the back of his mind told him that the moving routine might have hidden something deeper and more unexpected. As she tried to figure out what was wrong, Beatriz had no idea that her simple decision to return home that night would set her on the path to a series of events that would alter her life forever. The sense of restlessness she felt was just the beginning of a journey she never could have predicted. Already close to her destination, Beatriz was driving with her mind still focused on the long list of pending tasks in her new home when she decided to cut through an alley in the hope of avoiding some of the congestion. The narrow, dark path looked desolate, but she was determined to get to the hospital in time. Suddenly, something caught his attention among the trash cans. Beatriz saw a figure that seemed out of place. A young man, around her age, was lying on the floor with dirty clothes and a pool of blood around him. Beatriz's heart raced and her doctor's instincts immediately kicked in. Without hesitation, she parked the car in a safe place and ran towards the man. "Hey, are you okay?" Beatriz asked as she crouched down next to him, trying to assess the situation. The young man was unconscious and his breathing was irregular. The appearance of the wounds was serious, and it appeared that he had suffered some type of violent attack. Beatriz quickly took out her cell phone and called emergency services. His voice was firm but full of urgency. I need an ambulance immediately. I found an unconscious man who appears to have been attacked in an alley on Rua de Conceição, among the rubbish bins. While waiting for the ambulance to arrive, Beatriz tried to keep the young man stable. She grabbed a clean cloth she found in her bag and began to stop the blood. The situation was critical and the feeling of urgency weighed on his shoulders. Her instinct as a doctor guided her, but the situation made her feel a mix of tension and worry. A few minutes later, the ambulance siren echoed through the alley and paramedics quickly arrived. Beatriz advised them on the young man's condition and they worked in a coordinated manner to stabilize him. The medical team took care of the young man with the efficiency and speed that Beatriz knew well. She watched the patient's transport to the STI hospital, an anxious witness, as the ambulance snaked through the city's streets. At the hospital, the young man was taken directly to the emergency room. Beatriz was in one of the corridors, waiting for news, and the seconds seemed to drag by. Finally, the medical team began to leave the emergency room. "He's in serious condition," said Dr. Raphael, the surgeon in charge. "We have a ruptured spleen and mild head trauma. We will need to operate immediately to save him." Beatriz felt a lump in her throat when she heard the doctor's words. The gravity of the situation was clear, and the responsibility of having found the young man in such a condition made her reflect on the fragility of life. She knew the best thing to do was to focus on the present, support the medical team, and wait for the results of the surgery. With a deep sigh, Beatriz headed to the waiting room while she waited. His thoughts were divided between concern for the young man and the tiredness he felt. Destiny had taken him to her that night, and Beatriz wondered what impact this meeting would have on her life. In the moments that followed, Beatriz was unable to move away from that young man's case. After the emergency surgery, his situation was still critical, and she felt an increasing need to monitor every detail of his treatment. The first hours after the operation were crucial, and concerns about his recovery occupied his thoughts. After surgery, the young man that doctors had named Lucas, due to a lack of documents, was placed in an induced coma to minimize pressure on the brain and allow the spleen to recover. The lack of information about his identity made the case even more complex, but Beatriz was determined to do her best to help him. Each day, she visited Lucas, watching for signs of progress and adjusting treatment as needed. During his visits, the atmosphere at the hospital, in contrast to the seriousness of his work routine, was punctuated by friendly provocations from his colleagues. During a break in the cafeteria, Sophia, one of the nurses, made a joke that ended up becoming a kind of recurring joke among the team. "Look who's back, the undocumented beggar's girlfriend," Sophia commented with a playful smile as Beatriz grabbed a coffee. "You have to stop being so in love. He's getting excellent care, but you need to take care of yourself too. He won't wake up." Beatriz smiled, trying not to let on the discomfort she felt with the comments. "I'm just doing my job. Someone needs to make sure he gets the best treatment possible." Sophia laughed, winking at Beatriz. Of course. Just don't forget to take care of your heart too. Okay?" Well-intentioned or not, her co-workers did not understand the emotional weight that Beatriz carried. For her, the connection with Lucas went beyond a simple professional concern. There was something about her closed eyes, the fragility of her state, that evoked deep empathy. Beatriz often found herself thinking about how he had ended up in that alley, with no one to take care of him in the following days. While Lucas was still struggling to wake up, Beatriz spent hours by his side, talking to him in a soft and encouraging tone. She believed that her voice, even if Lucas couldn't hear it, could bring some form of comfort. "You are in good hands. Lucas is fighting very well. I know it must be difficult, but we are here to help you," said Beatriz with words full of hope and determination in her daily visits. Beatriz meticulously noted every little sign of progress. She studied the exams and maintained constant communication with the intensive care team. The connection she felt with Lucas was so strong that she couldn't help but think there was something deeper in the bond between them. Despite the team's jokes and provocations, Beatriz remained firm. His dedication to Lucas' case was beyond any personal consideration. She knew that in a situation like this, the line between professionalism and emotional involvement was fine, but her goal was clear: to ensure that Lucas had the chance to recover and discover the story behind this mysterious young man. With each day that passed, Beatriz felt that, in some way, she was not only helping a patient, but also trying to unravel the enigma of her own connection to Lucas. After 2 weeks of constant vigilance, time was beginning to drag on for Beatriz. Lucas remained unconscious, and with every minute without a visible change in his condition, he became an emotional challenge. She spent hours at his side, reviewing medical reports, adjusting medications, and talking to the staff to ensure he received the best. Until, finally, destiny prepared a surprise for Beatriz. One morning, while checking medication administration and preparing the dose for the next cycle, Beatriz noticed an unexpected movement. Lucas was moving his lips and his breathing seemed more regular. Beatriz approached quickly, her eyes attentive to the subtle changes. Suddenly, Lucas opened his eyes, blinking slowly as if he was trying to focus his vision. Beatriz stood paralyzed for a moment, unable to believe what she was seeing. "Water," he murmured in a hoarse and weak voice. "I need water." Beatriz's heart raced with relief and excitement. Without wasting a second, she ran to get a glass of water and called the doctor on duty. "Dr. Raphael, Aunt woke up. He's asking for water." The doctor arrived quickly, accompanying Beatriz back to Lucas's room. "Perfect. This is a great sign," said Dr. Raphael, examining the patient carefully and administering the water carefully. Lucas drank slowly, while his eyes wandered around the room with an expression of confusion. Beatriz watched every movement with her heart tight with uncertainty about what would come next. After the initial examination, Dr. Raphael informed that, although Lucas was stable and awake, he would still need more monitoring time in the hospital. Recovery would be slow and complex, especially due to amnesia. "You're in a hospital," explained Dr. Raphael in a reassuring voice. "You suffered some serious injuries, but you are recovering. We will still need to monitor your progress closely." Beatriz watched as Dr. Raphael continued to evaluate Lucas, and her mind was full of questions about what had happened to the young man. Lucas's lack of memory was a crucial piece missing from the puzzle of his recovery. He could not remember his name, where he lived, or any details of his life before the incident. The absence of visitors and the lack of personal information about Lucas left him in an even more vulnerable situation. He seemed lost and lonely in a reality that Beatriz understood well. She decided that if Lucas needed someone to trust, she would be there for him. Over the next few days, Beatriz became a constant and comforting presence for Lucas. She talked to him about trivial matters, helped him understand what was happening, and offered emotional support. She knew that in addition to medical care, Lucas needed someone to listen to him and help him deal with the trauma of his situation. "Lucas, I'm Beatriz," she said one morning, sitting next to his bed. "I'm here to help you get through this. If you need anything, just let me know." Lucas looked at her with gratitude and, although still confused, began to recognize Beatriz as a source of comfort in the midst of uncertainty. The connection between them grew and Beatriz became an essential friend and confidant, filling the void left by the absence of any family or personal memories of Lucas. As the days went by, Lucas' health began to show visible signs of improvement. He was more aware, and although his memory was still a blur, physical strength was reestablishing itself. Beatriz, seeing the steady progress, began thinking of ways to offer Lucas more stability during his recovery. Loneliness the EUG was feelings about her. In a moment of reflection, Beatrice remembered the extra room in her house, which until then had been used as a storage room for boxes and old furniture. It was a small space, but with some renovations, it could be transformed into a comfortable place. She knew the gesture was risky, since she knew nothing about Lucas's past, but her instinct told her it was the right thing to do. After a consultation with Dr. Raphael, who gave medical approval for the change of environment, Beatrice found a moment to talk to Lucas about the proposal. They were in the hospital waiting room and Beatrice brought up the idea with an encouraging smile. "Lucas, I was thinking, I have an extra room in my house that isn't being used for anything other than storage. If you want, you can stay there until you're completely recovered and can sort out whatever happened," she said. Lucas looked at her, surprised and clearly touched by the offer. "Are you really offering me a place to stay? That's very generous of you," Lucas replied with a grateful smile. "I accept. I don't have many options right now and I really appreciate your help." In the following days, Beatrice and Lucas worked together to transform the old storage room into a habitable room. Beatrice had hired a contractor for the essential renovations and she got involved in the process herself, helping to paint the walls and assemble furniture. Lucas, despite his physical limitations, did what he could, organizing the boxes and helping to clean the space. The work was exhausting but rewarding. At the end of a day of hard work, when the room was finally ready and decorated with some basic pieces, Beatrice prepared a pizza to celebrate the achievement. Lucas and Beatrice sat at the improvised dinner table, sharing pizza and talking about the small victories they had achieved. Lucas was visibly emotional and more relaxed than in previous days. "I didn't expect to find someone so generous in a situation like this," said Lucas, taking a bite of pizza. "I know I still have a long way to go, but this really means a lot to me. I thank you from the bottom of my heart." Beatrice smiled, feeling a warmth of satisfaction. "I'm glad I could help. Sometimes small gestures make a big difference. Let's focus on your recovery and maybe find out more about your past when you're ready." The next day, Lucas woke up with a renewed sense of hope. The now cozy and well-organized room was a clear representation of the effort he and Beatrice had put in together to create a space that felt like home. Upon opening the bedroom door, Lucas found something unexpected. A basket of fresh fruit and artisan bread was delicately placed outside, with a note attached. Lucas took the note and read the words handwritten by Beatrice. "Good morning, Lucas. I hope you have a great morning. Enjoy the fruit and bread. If you need anything, I'm just a call away. With affection, Beatrice." The simplicity and affection of the gesture deeply touched Lucas. He felt a comforting warmth knowing that someone was thinking about him and looking out for his well-being. He appreciated the basket and placed it on the table, thinking about how generous and supportive Beatrice had been to him. With the determination to start his life over again, Lucas decided it was time to act. He knew he needed to rebuild his identity and find a way to support himself during the day. He went in search of a social worker to help him obtain documents, find a job, and reestablish his identity. Through the social worker's work, Lucas hoped to create a clear path for his future. While Lucas focused on taking the first steps to resolve these issues, Beatrice was at work, busy with her responsibilities at the hospital. The house that had been transformed with Lucas' help now had some areas that still needed maintenance. Upon returning home, Beatrice was surprised to see that Lucas had started working on improvements to the house. Windows were being repaired, doors were being tightened, and minor repairs were being made with meticulous attention. Lucas was in the middle of his work, sweaty and focused, but with a satisfied smile on his face. "Beatrice," Lucas exclaimed when he opened the door and saw the scene. "What's going on here? Looks like you're busy." Lucas stopped and turned to her, still holding a tool in his hand. "I was just trying to repay the support you gave me," The house still needs some repairs, and I thought I could help while you're at work. I just wanted to do something useful." Beatrice looked at him, touched by the gesture. "You didn't have to do that. I'm already happy to be able to help you, and you need to take care of yourself too, but I really appreciate what you're doing." Lucas gave a modest smile. "I want to show that I am committed to starting my life over. The help you gave me is something I will never forget, and I feel like this is the least I can do to show my gratitude. If you need more help or anything, just let me know." Beatrice responded sincerely. "I'll prepare dinner for you. Can you tell me about your day and what your plans are for the future?" Lucas nodded, relieved to be able to share his concerns and hopes with Beatrice. As Beatrice prepared dinner, he felt that, despite the adversities and the unknown, he was beginning to build something solid and meaningful in his life. Beatrice's presence and the effort she made to help him find a new beginning guided his path to a better future. As the months passed, the bond between Beatrice and Lucas strengthened in a surprising way. Daily coexistence brought to light a deep and sincere connection between the two. The conversations, laughter, and even everyday challenges contributed to the growth of a relationship that quickly became more than a simple friendship. Afternoons spent talking about dreams and plans for the future turned into moments of intimate connection. Walks in the park and quiet evenings watching movies in the living room provided a space for both of them to discover and appreciate their qualities and desires. Thus, the formation of friendship into deep love was a natural and rewarding process. Beatrice and Lucas found comfort and satisfaction in each other's presence, and the joy they shared was palpable. Before long, the two were dating and couldn't be happier. On a Saturday night, after a particularly hectic week at the hospital, Beatrice and Lucas decided to spend some quiet time at home. Beatrice prepared a simple, cozy dinner, and they sat at the table, enjoying the meal while talking about what they liked most about each other. The conversation flowed naturally, and as she looked at Lucas, Beatrice felt a deep and lasting love. Their relationship continued to deepen, and soon they both realized that they were ready to take an important step in their lives together. The transformation of the feeling into a solid, romantic love was evident in every affectionate gesture and in every mutual support. They were both excited about the idea of building a future together. One sunny morning, as they were preparing for a casual outing, Beatrice received news that would further change the course of their lives. She had taken a pregnancy test and, upon seeing the positive result, felt a mixture of surprise and joy. That news was something that needed to be shared immediately. He was in the kitchen, preparing coffee, when Beatrice came in holding the pregnancy test. His eyes sparkled with a mix of nervousness and excitement. "Lucas, I have something to show you," said Beatrice with a trembling voice. Lucas, noticing the seriousness in Beatrice's tone, put down his coffee and walked towards her. When he saw the test, his eyes widened and it spread across his face. "Are you pregnant?" he asked, almost in disbelief, his voice full of emotion. Beatrice nodded with teary eyes. "Yes, we are expecting a baby." Lucas hugged her tightly and joy was written all over his face. "That's incredible, Beatrice. I can hardly believe it. I'm so happy. I can't wait to start a family with you." The pregnancy news brought a new level of excitement and hope to their relationship. Lucas was ecstatic at the prospect of becoming a father and building a family with Beatrice. His joy was evident in every word and gesture, and he showed an even deeper love for her, feeling that they were creating something truly special together. However, the news also brought a wave of questions and jokes from Beatrice's coworkers. Comments and jokes about how Beatrice could plan a family with someone with no memory were frequent. Although the comments were, most of the time, made in a humorous way, Beatrice felt the need to defend the love they shared. "I understand that it may seem strange to some, but what we have is real and profound," Beatrice told her colleagues firmly. It is not the memory of Lucas that defines how we feel about each other, but the connection and commitment we have now, with Lucas's unwavering support and trust in the strength of the relationship we had built. Beatriz continued to focus on the future they were building together. The certainty of genuine love and the vision of a life shared with Lucas and the baby was a constant source of joy and inspiration for both of them. Despite the profound happiness that Lucas and Beatriz were sharing with the pregnancy, Lucas began to face a new and disturbing difficulty: nightmares. Nights of sleep that were once peaceful have become a source of restlessness. Lucas often woke up, sweaty and with a racing heart, disturbed by the vivid and distressing dreams that tormented him. One particularly difficult night, Lucas tossed and turned in bed, breathing quickly and unevenly. Beatriz, noticing his discomfort, woke up and found him sitting on the edge of the bed, with his head in his hands. She came closer, touching his shoulder gently. "Lucas, what's going on?" asked Beatriz with concern, her voice soft and reassuring. Lucas raised his head, his eyes showing a mix of fear and confusion. "My nightmare was so real," he murmured, holding a cloth and trying not to shake what he didn't understand. Beatriz sat next to him, trying to absorb the gravity of the situation. "These nightmares must be causing you a lot of anguish, but it's important to remember that they don't define who you are or the future we have together," said Beatriz. Lucas shook his head, his mind filled with doubts. "I start to wonder if anyone in my life before the accident, maybe I was married, or maybe had a family that I left behind. What if that's the case? What if I've hurt someone deeply?" He shook your hand, a look full of understanding and support. "I know these dreams can be scary and I understand why you are worried. But the important thing is that we are building something new and beautiful now. The past may have left marks, but it is not what defines our future," continued Beatriz. "You are a wonderful man and what we have together is real. The past is a part of who we are, but it is not what defines us. Let's focus on what we can build together, the love we have for each other and the future we are creating for our baby." Lucas took a deep breath, trying to calm down with Beatriz's words. She wrapped him in a comforting hug, and he could feel her warmth and support. His nightmares would not disappear immediately, but Beatriz's presence and the love she offered him were a constant relief to his anguished spirit. "Thank you, Beatriz," he murmured, his voice full of gratitude. "I don't know what I would do without you. You give me strength and clarity when I need it most." Beatriz smiled, stroking his hair. "We're in this together, Lucas, and I'm here to support you, no matter what. Let's face this one day at a time, and I'm sure we will find peace and happiness together." In the days that followed, Lucas felt a growing urge to seek answers about his past. The restlessness caused by nightmares and the feeling of being incomplete led him to make an important decision. He needed to further investigate his identity and what had happened before the accident. On a cloudy morning, Lucas went to the police station. The atmosphere of the place was filled with a sense of formality and routine, and he was greeted by an attendant who directed him to the missing persons section. "Good morning, Lucas," he began, his voice full of hope and nervousness. "I'm trying to find more information about my past. I would like to know if there is any update on my case or if anyone has reported me missing." The police officer in charge of the case, a middle-aged man with a sympathetic look, looked at Lucas with a mix of curiosity and empathy. "Let's check the information available at the moment. There are no new leads, but we can help you review some missing persons files. Maybe you'll find something useful." With an expression of determination, Lucas was led to a room where several folders and files on missing persons were stored. He spent hours poring over the photos and descriptions, as each image represented a story of pain. The tension in the air was palpable, and Lucas felt like he was on the verge of something significant. Then, while flipping through a folder, Lucas stopped abruptly. His eyes widened as he recognized a familiar face in one of the photos. It was him, or rather, a photo of a person who looked like him but with a different name, Gabriel. The shock and emotion almost made him falter. The police officer observed Lucas' reaction and approached. "Did you find something?" he asked. Lucas nodded, trying to control his shaky voice. "Yes, I found a photo of me here. It looks like that's my real name, Gabriel. I need to know more about this. Is there a contact number associated with this case?" The officer checked the records and provided a phone number that was listed in Lucas' files. With shaking hands, he took out his cell phone and called the number indicated. The phone rang and, after a few seconds, a female voice answered on the other end. "Hello?" The voice was full of emotion. "Hello? My name is Gabriel. I found a photo of myself in the missing persons files. I don't know much about my past, but it seems like you guys are looking for me," Lucas said, trying to remain calm, although his heart was beating fast. "Is that right, Gabriel?" asked the woman, starting to cry. "Gabriel, my God. Are you Gabriel? I can't believe it. I'm your mother and we've been looking for you for so long." The woman's words caused a whirlwind of emotions in Gabriel. "Yes, it's me," he replied. "I don't know much about what happened, but I found my photo in the police files and now I know who I am." Still crying, the woman explained that the family was eager to reunite with Gabriel, but that, due to the distance, it would take a few hours to reach him. Gabriel gave Beatrice's address, where he was temporarily living, and waited anxiously. When he hung up the phone, Gabriel felt a mixture of shock and hope. He was about to reunite with his family, something that seemed so far away until that moment. As soon as he returned home, Beatrice, noticing his concern and scared, approached him with a look of concern and support. "Lucas, are you okay? Did something happen?" she asked, holding his hand tenderly. I found my family. They're coming here, but it's going to take time. Besides, I discovered that my real name is Gabriel," he said, his voice cracking with emotion. Beatrice smiled with an expression of joy and relief. "This is wonderful. I'm so happy for you. Let's prepare to welcome them. It's just going to be difficult to call him Gabriel instead of Lucas." She laughed as the night progressed. Beatrice and Lucas, now identified as Gabriel, were sitting in the living room, anxiously awaiting the arrival of his family. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation and nervousness, and their anxiety was palpable. Beatrice tried to offer comfort to Gabriel, who was immersed in confused and emotional thoughts. Suddenly, Gabriel looked at Beatrice with an expression that mixed confusion and hope. "I spoke to my mother on the phone, but I didn't ask her name. I was so stunned by the revelation that now I'm trying to process it all." Beatrice smiled softly, placing Gabriel's arm at her side. "Okay, it's understandable to be like this. The important thing is that you are about to be reunited with your family, and I will be here to support you no matter what happens. We are in this together." Gabriel nodded, thanking Beatrice for her constant support. He stood up and paced the room, trying to calm down and process the importance of the moment. "I just hope everything goes well. I don't know what to expect, other than the joy of finally meeting my family." Hours later, the sound of horns and engines interrupted the conversation. Beatrice and Gabriel got up and went to the window. They saw several cars parking in front. The first vehicle was a van and a woman got out of it. Gabriel immediately recognized and blushed when he saw the woman who had appeared in his nightmares. She was exactly as he had seen in his dreams, with an expression of deep emotion and relief, carrying a baby in her arms. "The same dreams," Gabriel murmured, trembling. The woman approached the building with quick steps and her eyes filled with tears. At the same time, a second car arrived and an older couple, who appeared to be Gabriel's parents, got out of the vehicle. The couple had a gentle and worried appearance, with faces that reflected the anxiety and relief of finally finding their lost son. When Gabriel's family knocked on his apartment door, he managed to contain his emotion and immediately remembered their names. With tears in his eyes, he ran towards them, shouting, "Mother! Father!" The woman hugged him tightly, sobbing with joy and relief. "Gabriel, my dear, we finally found you." Gabriel's father also hugged him. The scene was full of emotion, and Beatrice watched with a mix of curiosity and relief. She felt profound joy when she saw Gabriel reunited with his family and knew that this moment was an important milestone in his life. Beatrice approached, observing the touching scene. As the commotion began to subside, Gabriel turned to her, his eyes shining with gratitude. "Beatrice, this is my mother, Helena, and my father, Carlos," he introduced with an emotional smile. "And you, well, I don't remember," he said, referring to the woman with the baby in her lap. Beatrice looked into Gabriel's eyes and replied, "I am Isabella, your sister, and this is Miguel, the nephew you loved so much." Upon hearing that, Gabriel immediately recognized his sister. After hugging her, he started crying without stopping. At this moment, Helena and Carlos turned to Beatrice, thanking her with sincere looks. "Thank you very much for everything you did for Gabriel," Helena said with a voice full of emotion. "You were an angel to him." Beatrice smiled, feeling moved by the words. "It was a pleasure to help. I'm glad I got to see you guys reunite. Gabriel is an amazing person, and I'm so happy he found his family." With the introductions made, Beatrice invited Gabriel's family to come in and settle down. The night progressed, and the atmosphere at Beatrice's house was full of emotional conversations and nervous laughter. The reunion was a moment of deep meaning for everyone, and Beatrice knew that despite the sudden change and what was yet to come, she had done the right thing by supporting Gabriel on his journey to reunite with his family. As the night progressed and the first moments of reunion passed, Gabriel finally began to regain his memory, ready to share the story that had been a mystery to everyone for so long. He sat with his family and Beatrice. The atmosphere in the room was charged with emotion and curiosity as Gabriel began to tell what he remembered about his life before the accident. "I lived a different life from the one you knew," Gabriel began, his voice shaking a little with emotion. "I was kind of an adventurer. I traveled the world without being tied to anything or anyone. Every place I visited offered me a new experience, a new adventure, and I was happy about it. Even though I'm away from my family," he paused, trying to gather his thoughts and words. "Before I left for my last trip, I had a big argument with my father. At the time, I was determined to follow my path without strings attached, and he insisted that I spend more time at home. I also ignored my sister's pleas, who tried to convince me to stay." Helena and Carlos listened attentively, their eyes filled with tears. "We're always worried about you," Carlos said softly. "We didn't know if we would ever see him again." Gabriel continued, "During one of my trips, I was robbed and left unconscious in an alley. That's how I ended up in such a complicated situation. When I woke up, I was in a place I didn't recognize, with no memory and no idea what had happened. Then Beatrice found me." He looked at Beatrice, who was beside him, and smiled gratefully. "She helped me find a way back, and now, as I reflect on all of this, I realize that the nightmares I had made sense. The woman I saw in my dreams was my sister, and the baby she was holding was my beloved nephew." Helena and Carlos exchanged emotional looks, and Isabella approached to hug Gabriel again, with tears of relief and happiness running down her face. "My God, Gabriel!" exclaimed Helena. "You have no idea how much time we spent looking for you and how much we feared never seeing you again." Gabriel held his sister's hand, feeling a deep sense of relief. "Now that we've met, I feel like I've finally managed to put all the pieces of my past together. It's a huge relief to know that you're still here and that the family is whole again." Beatrice, observing the meeting, felt a wave of satisfaction when she saw the joy and relief on the faces of Gabriel and his family. "I thank you for allowing me to be part of this story. I also have some news I would like to share with you." She looked at Gabriel, who returned the look with an encouraging smile. "We are expecting a baby, and this made the moment even more special for us." Gabriel's family's reaction was pure enthusiasm. "This is wonderful," exclaimed Helena. "We are so happy for you and Beatrice. It's like all the pieces of the puzzle are finally falling into place." "With little Miguel on my lap," completed Isabella. Gabriel's father approached. "We look forward to meeting the new member of our family and supporting you in whatever you need," said Carlos with a proud smile. The night continued with laughter, conversations, and plans for the future. Beatrice and Gabriel felt relieved and excited about the prospect of a new phase in their lives. Now, with the support of Gabriel's family, the reunion not only brought the joy of reuniting the family, but also offered a new perspective for the future. The beginning of this new phase was marked by a deep feeling of connection, hope, and happiness, and they were eager to build a life full of love, surrounded by the family that was now part of their story. A few months have passed since Gabriel's emotional reunion with his family and the announcement of Beatrice's pregnancy. Time has brought with it a series of wonderful changes and a growing sense of accomplishment. Beatrice and Gabriel were now immersed in a new and vibrant phase of their lives. The birth of your son was an event of great joy and celebration. Little Miguel brought new energy to Beatrice and Gabriel's home, filling every corner with laughter and the warmth of a united family. The baby's room was lovingly decorated, and every detail reflected the combination of Beatrice and Gabriel's styles, a symbol of the harmony they had found in each other. To celebrate their story, a special name was chosen for the baby, Theo. It was as if he had been named after his father, but with the name that symbolized his rebirth. Furthermore, Beatrice continued her career as a doctor with the same dedication as always. But now there was a new balance in her life. The apartment that was once a project in development was now complete, transformed from a space under renovation into a welcoming and vibrant home, reflecting Beatrice and Gabriel's happiness and fulfillment. The house was full of family photos, toys scattered across the floor, and the constant melody of children's laughter. Beatrice and Gabriel's daily routine was marked by the joy of raising their son. Mornings were filled with laughter and preparation for the day, while evenings offered quiet family time away from external pressures. Thus, the apartment became a center for celebrations and family gatherings. Often, Gabriel's family and Beatrice's friends would get together to share special moments, creating memories that were cherished by everyone. Birthday parties, important dates, and simple get-togethers were always occasions to strengthen bonds and celebrate life's achievements. By looking back and seeing the journey they had taken, Beatrice and Gabriel found a deep sense of accomplishment. They had created a home where love and happiness flourished and were ready to continue building a life together, always leaning on each other and surrounded by those they loved. The story of Beatrice and Gabriel was a testimony to the transformative power of love and solidarity. They found themselves in difficult circumstances and, together, managed to build a fulfilling life full of love. Their path was full of stones, but each obstacle was overcome with the strength and dedication of their affection for each other, and now for little Theo, the great love of their lives.